Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 28th regular meeting of Walpole Select Board. It's after 7 o'clock, the time of our posted time of our meeting, so I call the meeting to order. Let's stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we've got a couple of public hearings that we'll be doing with NSTAR. Do we have anyone from NSTAR here? Are they going to be here, Carl?
Good evening to the chair and the board. I don't see anybody from NSTAR here, so okay, here's Chris Cosby now.
Good
All right.
timing. All right, well, let's go through the procedure of opening a public hearing. So, Ally?
Motion to open public hearing?
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
500. We're now in a public hearing, and the purpose of this is for a grant of location to install approximately 485 feet of conduit for services to 625 Washington Street. I see we've got NSTAR representative here, so perhaps you could come up and talk to the request, and we'll handle any questions.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Christine Cosby, Eversource Energy, and we're requesting a grant a location for approximately 485 feet of conduit at existing manhole 22907, and the purpose of that, that's on East Street, and the purpose of that would be to provide the new electric service for the Byrd Middle School at 625 Washington Street.
Okay. Any questions from the board on this one?
Is that above ground or underground?
Underground.
Underground. Is the pole on the school side of East Street or the other side of East Street?
It's actually coming out of a manhole.
Oh, understood. Yeah, you
Yeah,
did say that.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Ally?
Motion to approve request of NSTAR Electric.
Actually, I think we have to close the...
Oh, yeah, motion to close the
Public
public
hearing
hearing.
Seconded?
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right, we've exited the public hearing. Ally?
Motion to approve request of NSTAR Electric Company for a grant of location to install approximately 485 feet of conduit to services for 625 Washington Street.
Seconded.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
5-0. Okay, next up, we have another public hearing. This one is for a poll location. So could I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing?
Seconded.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're now in a public hearing. Christine?
We're requesting a grant of location to install one new pole, pole 11/61A, on Elm Street, and the purpose of that pole would be to provide a new electric service to the property located at 605 Elm Street.
Okay. Questions for Christine on this one? And Carl, I'm sorry, I should have gone to you on the last one. Anything that you want to add?
Mr. Chair, Carl Bald of Town Engineer. No, we provided a brief recommendation to the board, and there was no special circumstances. This is all in connection with there's a site plan development for the old Dutton estate up there for the Stigmatine Fathers, and it's to provide power for them.
Great. Thank you, Carl. Okay, being no further questions, Ally, let's close the
Motion.
public hearing.
Yep, motion to close the public hearing?
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
5-0.
Motion to approve request of NSTAR Electric Company of Verizon for a grant of location to install a pole number 11-61A for service to 605 Elm Street.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
5-0-0. Christine, thank you.
Thank you.
Short and sweet.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Okay, is Jack Wiley here? Is Jack going to be here?
Yes, he's planning on being here, but we're
It's a little ahead.
a little early.
All right, so why don't we move ahead to the,
Tessie's is here.
Tessie's here. Okay, so let's, Mark, maybe we could talk about Tessie's.
So as Mark makes his way up, let me just give you a brief introduction on this. About 1 or 2 weeks ago, we received a letter from the owners of Tessie's in the Raven's Nest inquiring to do some work out on the sidewalk so they can improve the area right where that little convenience store used to be. And reviewed it with the department heads. No one saw any major issue with it. Worked on the draft license agreement that we've used in the past with other locations, including Raven's Nest. and sent it over. I believe you guys have had a chance to look it over. No issues as far as I'm aware. And I wanted to bring it to the board tonight so they don't lose any time with the construction season and be able to take advantage of the good weather.
Great, good intro. Mark, maybe I could turn it to you to just describe what you're doing and why you're asking for this?
So we're excited to start the expansion of Tessie's on Main Street, and to do that, the construction of the old facade of Mimi's is pretty old, so we wanted to take that whole structure out and put all new windows in, and to do that, we just have to build a box around it to do that, to make it safe. And there's also a surprise factor when it's finished. It'll be you'll see all the new windows there. It'll be pretty exciting.
And in order to support that, the proposal is to enter into a license agreement.
Correct.
For some period of time, and
Yeah.
There'll be some nominal fee associated with that.
Yeah. As we did with the outdoor dining.
Yeah,
pretty
exactly.
Similar to that.
I mean, I suggested that because for the last couple of years, we've done this license agreement to use the entire sidewalk space. This isn't even close to that. It's coming out.
4 feet.
Just 4 feet. But in order for the town to feel that they're protected in terms of indemnification and use of premise, I just thought that was sort of the logical step, and so that's why I proposed that. And it's the same license agreement that the town, Walpole, has drafted and sent us in the past, we've agreed to. So we feel that, that basically is a sort of a very good approach for both the town and for us to be able to move forward, because for us, we're dealing with having to do this in stages, and obviously don't want that area exposed, and with lead times on windows and supports for that. We're anxious
Keep it
to
nice
get
and
moving.
tidy.
We're anxious to get moving.
Yeah.
Well, I do have a question for you on it, but let me start by saying I fully support your request, and I'm very excited about what you're doing there with Tessie's and expanding it into what was the old Mimi's Variety. I think it's a really wonderful use of that corner, and it'll integrate so well with what you already do on the sidewalk out there. So
Yeah.
I think it's really exciting.
We're excited.
I really appreciate what you two are doing to
Thank you very much.
to help drive the economic development
Thank you.
downtown. My question is, as I looked at the drawing, it doesn't appear as though the drawing is drawn to scale. Is that fair to say?
Well, I think this initial drawing was done so we could get moving on the box. The full drawings with the plans has, obviously much more detail in it.
Yeah.
Those
Have been submitted
They were submitted today.
to the building department.
But the reason I'm asking is that I see on the corner, as you're going toward the Raven's Nest, the corner of the box that's going toward the
Yeah.
Raven's Nest.
Yeah.
It shows that you've got, I think it says 6 feet of space between the edge of the box and I guess it would be the curb.
Well, that's, I think, where it gets narrow, because,
But there's still adequate room for anybody in a wheelchair or to get by, or.
And my reason for asking about whether it was drawn to scale is if you look on the other corner, it says 9 feet of clearance, and there's a fair difference, if you just eyeball
because
it.
of the way it jets out in the
Yeah.
actual sidewalk. So it's actually wider, it's kind of like a wedge. It's wider, and then it kind of inclines in as you get to the Raven's Nest.
Okay.
And that's just the design of the sidewalk in that area. There's
Yeah,
nothing
and
that would
it's like the
add-
building's like a piece of keto, it's like a pie, it's like white
Yeah.
front.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm fully supportive of this. Let me see if there are any other
This is a
questions.
picture of one that we did in the Raven's Nest as well, like many
That's
Yeah, I
years
saw
ago.
13
that.
years ago.
No, and that worked extremely well.
Yeah, and that was
okay.
actually, where
Yeah.
that is, that's where it's at its most narrow.
And
point.
yeah, the sidewalk here is much narrower than the sidewalk outside of Mimi's, so
Right.
we actually had no problem when we had this design up there also.
Okay, awesome. Any questions from the board? Comments from the board?
All set.
Okay. Again, I think this is great, so
Thank you very much.
Ally?
Motion to approve the request of the owners of Tessie's Bar and Kitchen and sign the lease agreement.
Second?
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. 5-0. Great, congratulations,
much.
and
Thanks so
we look forward to seeing it opened up.
Yeah,
Be great.
that's good, thank you.
Okay, we're going to now move to our 7:15 appointment. Jack Wiley from the Adams Farm Committee is here with us tonight. Jack, do you want to come up to the podium? The point of discussion here is a request from the Adams Farm Committee to perhaps to consider banning dogs at Adams Farm due to the fact that we've had a lot of complaints. So Jack, you gave us a recap on it, but let me just turn it over to you and just step us through what the issue's all about.
Okay, thank you for getting us to this point, having this discussion. Just briefly, this is nothing new. There's been an issue with dogs since the town bought the property in 1997. Over time, there's been a lot more use of Adams Farm, and particularly with COVID, we found a considerable increase in the number of people who come to Adams Farm, and as a result, the number of dogs and dog walkers, and people who continually leave their dogs off leash, to the point where sometimes even in the parking lot, they don't even bother to leash their dogs. It's common, had been, when they got in the back trails, the back field, that you would see dogs off leash. But even to the point where we know that we have heard the message that it's okay to let your dog run loose at Adams Farm. So we know that there are people who will not visit the farm because of off-leash dogs. We have had some send us to the Friends of Adams Farm, who support a lot of the, financially support a lot that goes on at Adams Farm, that they are withdrawing their support because of off-leash dogs, as well as just the comments, we will not come back to the farm because of off-leash dogs. About probably a year and a half ago, we contacted Animal Control and the Police Department and asked if they could increase their patrols or visits to Adams Farm, which they did. And I know that the Animal Control has basically indicated they have a lot on their plate and can't spend a lot of time at Adams Farm. Police Department started, and I know they've been doing some, but they instituted regular patrols on an irregular basis, and spoke to people. They got basically, I think, a somewhat positive response of people would then leash their dogs. We did see some improvement, but it still is, it's ongoing. It's not, it has not solved the problem. So basically, after thinking about this, and a couple of years ago, we had an open meeting to discuss dogs at Adams Farm. Again, we've had some people who will step up, and they even made a postcard to hand out, pick up after your dog, keep your dog on leash. Again, some improvement, but it just doesn't last, and is not nowhere near 100% compliant. So, considering the issues, one is the safety of people. I've heard of a couple of dog bites. We have not had a lot. I don't think the police department has had any reporting for dog bites, but I have heard of a couple. And I think there are probably some others. But that is a potential problem. We've had people knocked down by jumping dogs. And we've had issues where someone is walking their dog, small dog, and a loose big dog comes up, and the big dog may be aggressive, may just want to be friendly, but it's become an issue, again, with the small dog person hanging onto a dog with a big dog sitting there jumping or yapping, whatever. So, and most of the times you ask, well, my dog's under control. Obviously not under control. And when it's been brought to some people have responded positively, put the dog on a leash. Sometimes you just get up, don't bother me. And other times you get an aggressive response, to the point where we have some people who will not bring it up anymore because they have had extremely aggressive responses to them. So the other issue, basically, people are violating the town bylaw, so that again, another of the issues. Dog waste is it's a public health nuisance and is a stormwater pollutant. We also have the Monarch Field, which is a field behind the barn, is a designated Monarch Way Station. I don't know if you're familiar with the Monarch butterflies, but they go from here to Mexico and back. They're very sensitive to the way that they lay their eggs on milkweed. The eggs hatch into a worm, the worm goes, makes a chrysalis, and at those stages, they're very susceptible to any activity, particularly a dog walking by hitting maybe the milkweed that they're on, but loose dogs can disturb this, and if the caterpillar gets knocked loose before or the chrysalis gets knocked loose before it actually forms a butterfly, it won't become a butterfly. And the monarchs are in trouble. I think the last numbers I saw, they're improving slightly, but it is a nationwide problem. They go from here to Mexico. There's another bunch that go from California to Mexico, and part of that is in this area that there's a lot of breeding monarchs at Adams Farm. So we've asked people who have their dogs loose to keep them out of the field. We've had some people respond, okay, they understand the situation. We've had others just tell them, go stuff it. Same thing, we made a connection to the butterfly garden from the Monarch Trail. Put a sign up, no dogs, no bikes. Haven't had a problem with bikes, we have a problem with dogs. People coming through, bring it to their attention, and a couple have gotten very aggressive in response to, I'm going to let my dog go wherever my dog wants to go. So as a result, I'm here tonight to ask if if the board would grant the Adams Farm Committee permission to ban dogs at Adams Farm. Not immediately, but with, what I would plan is some, over a relatively reasonable period of time to get the word out, make a printed notice, and let people know if they continue to keep the dogs off leash, they will be banned. There is in the town bylaw that dogs are not permitted in cemeteries or posted town property. So this could be a posted town property. And there is a fine schedule for violating that posted town property. So that would be my request. I did put together, if you agree, what the notice roughly would say. I may be presumptuous in stating this at this moment, but the Select Board has approved the request from the Adams Farm Committee to ban dogs at Adams Farm. Prior to setting a date for this action, the committee is asking once again for all dog walkers to obey the town bylaw, keep your dog on leash at all times, pick up and properly dispose of your dog's waste. Violators of this ban will be subject to fines for having a dog on town posted property. It can be modified if you felt needed that, but that's a suggestion. So, that's my story.
Great, well, thanks, Jack, for being here, and a few things. First of all, we have a leash law in town, and that leash law doesn't get suspended at the border of Adams Farm. The dogs are supposed to be on the leash. It's well posted up there that dogs are to be kept on the leash, so it's not news to anybody. I go up there a fair amount, and I always see dogs off the leash, so I know it's a definite issue. I don't doubt that some of the things you've described have happened. They haven't happened to me, but I don't doubt they've happened. And if it's true that there are people who don't want to use the Adams Farm because they're afraid of the dogs that are running loose, that's a real shame. This is a gem of a property, and one that is open to all residents, well, even outside of Walpole. Anybody's welcome there. And to think that there are people who are not taking advantage of it because of the dogs being overly aggressive is a shame. I like your suggestion of trying to ease into it and see if we, you've already tried the police and animal control approach. My understanding is there have been some fines that have been levied, and bottom line is you see improvement, but then it wanes, and it's a continuing problem. So I like the suggestion of sort of saying, look, here's the deal. Select Board has agreed that we're going to ban the dogs, as of a certain point, unless we see, great improvement. And it would have to be great improvement of people respecting the leash law and keeping their dogs on the leash. And so I think that's a good idea. I think it's great for people to be able to walk their dogs on Adams Farm. I think that's awesome. I'm a big dog lover. And so I think that's wonderful, but you just can't let them off the leash, and there's way too much of that. So those are my thoughts on it. Let me just open it up to the board for questions and other comments. Who'd like to go first? Glenn?
Sure. So I think, hey, Jack, thanks for coming in. Yeah, no question. Everything you've described is as you described it. Unfortunately, there are some, not dogs, but people who are aggressive in response to you just telling them, or you or somebody on your committee telling them respectfully to put their dog on a leash, and they're not responding the way they should. So, yeah, there's no question that there are dogs off leashes. I've seen it. I was out there with you, I don't know if you remember, a couple years ago, and dog came bounding up and probably jumped on us at that time, and I'm thinking to myself, not now, not this guy, not when we're here, like anybody but us, but it happens. So clearly it happens more than it should. Having said that, I do think I want to acknowledge that this is a big, if we go down this path, it's a big precedent-setting. It'd be a big precedent-setting situation that we could go down. I don't think there are any other places other than cemeteries, maybe Jarvis Farm, although people don't really obey that rule over there. But dogs are allowed anywhere on public land in Walpole, whether it's 1A Fields, the town forest, and then Norfolk County. The Aggie owns 150 acres behind the school. Dogs are allowed back there. They've also had issues, but they're allowed there. And then there's another 150 acres in the vicinity of Adams Farm that's contiguous to land we own, as well as New England Forestry Foundation has some land. So it's just a precedent that I want to be clear that we know is a good precedent. And so I would be more supportive of maybe a trial, maybe a moratorium, something that's temporary. We could say it's 6-month expiration, see how a ban goes, and then after 6 months we can decide to make it permanent at that point. So that would be my inclination, is to just kind of ease into it, only because it's a big precedent that we'd be setting for the town. But yeah, that's how I feel. So.
Thanks, Glenn. Anyone else?
Sure.
Yeah.
I go to Adams Farm often, and I walk my dog there as well. So I really enjoy it, and I agree with everything that Jim just said, and I won't repeat it, except to say that it's really unfortunate, really the lack of how inconsiderate people can be, and people make it about themselves or about their dog, but really it's about everyone else that wants to use that facility. And so I think it's a good idea. While you acknowledged that this has been a long time coming, it's been an issue that's been tried to be remediated on many fronts, I'm still really hesitant to ban dogs outright, and it sounds like Adams Farm Committee is as well, in terms of, okay, the first step would be kind of almost like a last chance, right?
Yeah.
This is going to happen. The Select Board has approved it. You really have to get your ducks in a row here, people. You have to start being considerate of others. We need to have everybody come together, and then you might get some other people who walk at Adams Farm to help out in the policing or the enforcement, right? Reminding others, hey, we're not even going to be able to do this if you don't leash your dog. I like that idea. So I think that would be good, and I'd be supportive of that.
This is part of the purpose of doing it this way, is I know that there are people who have dogs, walk the dogs, and have been instrumental in telling people, pick up and also keep your dog on leash. But that's, one person here, one person there. And that's what I'm hoping, is that by spreading the word and getting dog walkers to tell dog walkers, rather than a non-dog walker telling a dog walker or a dog owner, because they're not walking them, that you need to do this or you won't be able to bring your dog here anymore. That message will be hopefully loud and clear, and that it will hopefully be very effective.
Right.
And I know some people who have been doing this over time, and I know they would be participating in getting the message out to dog walkers. As far as, I think if you okay this approach tonight, that we could revisit it it would take at least a month. I'm not going to be able to do anything for another month myself. So that we wouldn't start getting the word out to people. And I would want to at least probably have a month once we start doing this to get that message through. And then after that time, if we want to take a 6-month period and review it again and see how things are going, that'd be fine with me.
Yeah, and really getting to that point of kind of peer enforcement really is the only way it's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So, my last comment would be, the requirement for leashes is, and I don't usually make it down by the barn because I can get in there from another way, but I did go down by the barn, and I counted at least a half a dozen signs, one of which was a banner that was about 8 feet long, so people know, what they're supposed to do there. And
We just put 2 new banners up.
Yeah.
One at the barn, and I'm not sure where the other one, I don't know if it's at Frontier Road or
Yeah.
where the other one went. but,
Yeah.
We just put those up.
Yeah, you wouldn't think you'd have to tell people to be considerate of other people, but, we do what we can. So, as I said, I'd rather not have a ban go into effect, but, hey, it is what it is. And I think that we need to make sure that everybody feels comfortable there, and if that's the answer, then that's what we'll have to do.
Thanks, Ben. Anyone else? Mark?
Yeah, I would just say, I like your idea. It's always a shame when a few people ruin it for all the others that, can follow the rules. And I do know people who don't go there anymore because of the dogs. So, and that's a problem too. Like, it should be available for everybody. So I like the idea of giving it a chance, see if people can sort of self-support the rule. And then if that doesn't work, then, put the ban in place. So I think that's a good strategy.
Okay. I also know that we did a little survey, the Friends of Adams Farm, one Saturday morning for about 4 hours or so, and just asked people where they're from, why they came. We have people, a woman comes 2-3 times a week from East Providence, because it's such a beautiful place. Most of the people were dog walkers, but also we asked where they're from, and less than half the people were from Walpole. That was a small sample, one morning, one particular day. But I know there are a lot of people who are not from Walpole who come to Adams Farm. And a lot of it is to, quote, walk the dog and let them run. So
Well,
it's-
this seems like a very reasonable approach that you've proposed to us to say, well, we're going to publicize that the select board has voted this, and at some point down the road, if behavior doesn't improve, it will go into effect, which then gives you sort of some discretion in terms of how you go about it, Jack, and,
Okay.
we leave that up to you to figure it all out, but knowing that you have the support of the board, and, with any luck at all, the peer pressure will fix the problem, and we don't have to put the ban in place. And so I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
Any final comments before we vote?
No, I mean, I agree with what has been said. I hope that it would not have take place, that it would have to be a permanent ban, that hopefully we can change the behaviors, but it's definitely an issue. Everyone should feel welcome to go there, and if the Adams Farm's losing financial support as well, because of the lack of people following the bylaws and the rules, that's unfortunate.
Definitely. Okay, Ally?
Motion to allow Adams Farm Committee to ban dogs at Adams Farm if they deem it necessary.
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
500. Thank you, Jack. Really appreciate you coming in.
Okay, so I can start with the
Yep.
notification that it has
can,
been
yeah.
approved and may be implemented in the future.
Yeah, and just let us know if you need anything else.
I'll send a copy of the notice that we're going to do to the board, so.
Perfect.
Have that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, on to 7:30 and our next appointment, open forum. Anyone here to speak at open forum? Doesn't look like it. Let's keep on going. New business. Jim, we've got a contract award.
Sure. This is for the East Street Bridge replacement. Carl and Rick have both looked this over, and they're recommending, sorry, I lost my spot here. That we award this bid number 23-26 to the Beta Group, Inc., so we can get started on this one. You may recall that the funding source on this was ARPA funds, so we're under budget on this one, which will mean we can reappropriate those funds towards other projects once we start doing that again. So, any question? I know Carl and Rick are both here.
Any questions from the board?
My only question was concerning the traffic and just impact, what we could expect.
Traffic. Thoughts on the traffic?
Good afternoon or evening, Carl Bald of Town Engineer. And actually, there's a RFP, was pretty detailed RFP with a lot of backup. And one of the requirements in here is definitely part of the design is to take a look at options. The selected designer has a nice proposal in there to look at both stage construction and accelerated bridge replacement techniques. In plain English, the stage is the way the Route 1A bridge was done. Close down, demolish one side, build it back up, and then do the other, versus, looking at a more accelerated technique for a full closure, swing the major elements in and not have it go out so long. So that's definitely going to be analyzed during this construction design process, bid process. So they have got a good background in that stuff. As a matter of fact, all the proposers, we're looking at those options and aware of it. So and there's a full analysis of what happens when we do. It's not going to be just let's put up a few signs and see what happens. This is a pretty expensive design, and it includes a pretty good analysis of and possible retiming of signals and things like that downtown while detours are run. So there's a very good inclusion in that to be considered during the design.
Any questions for Carl? Any other questions? All right, Ally?
Motion to award 2023-26 Elm Street Bridge Replacement Design to Beta Group, Inc.
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
500. All right, next we have reappointment of boards and committee members whose terms expire on March 31st. So why don't we start with that? Any questions about any of the appointments that are coming up in the end of March? Okay, Ally?
Motion to renew the terms of all boards, committee members seeking reappointment as listed in our packet.
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
500. And then we have a request to appoint Jerome Riker as an associate member of the Council on Aging. Ally?
Motion to appoint Jerome Riker as an associate member of the Council on Aging.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
500. And our next one would be to appoint the Town Administrator, Jim Johnson, to the Norfolk County Advisory Board. We had a seat become available, and we think it makes a lot of sense to have Jim representing us in the advisory board. And so that's the purpose of this appointment. So,
Jim, can you just clarify, what does the Norfolk County Advisory Board do?
Basically, to my understanding, they oversee the budget of the county. That's a major thing that they weigh in on there. The commissioners run some things by them, but it's mostly they serve as the finance committee, basically.
And every town in Norfolk County
They
has
have a
one?
representative. I know Michael is their Medway's representative. I think Kevin, my counterpart, Rentham, also sits on there. So there's multiple town administrators that sit
Gotcha,
on there.
yeah, okay.
I'm fine with doing it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Ally?
Motion to appoint Jim Johnson to the Norfolk County Advisory Committee.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
5-0. Okay, we have next stadium parking request. Jim, anything to mention on this?
No, everything's in line. They met all the requirements.
Yeah, we
and
just
we're
have a
good.
couple of outstanding.
It just,
properties
honestly,
that-
I don't know if there's gonna be much of a market there this year for it, because the stadium opened up all their parking
Yeah,
for
they
free.
did.
That came up at the Neponset Valley Chamber of Commerce event this morning, so might not be much of a demand for too much longer, so
Interesting.
we'll see.
Okay. Questions for Jim? Ally?
Motion to renew the stadium event parking light licenses at the properties listed on the agenda.
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
5-0. We have a couple of Recreation Department event requests. Ally?
Motion to approve request of the Recreation Department to use the Town Common to hold the 29th Annual Concerts on the Common Series and to host National Night Out on Tuesday, August 1st, 2023.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. 5-0.
Hey, I would just like to say a big thanks to the rec department. So I think that the concert series is great. It gives people a chance to get downtown. So I think they're doing a great job by keeping this going, so.
Well said, thanks. Next up is a request from Norfolk County Aggie to use the old Fisher Ball Field on June 1 to support their commencement. Any questions on that one? Ally?
Motion to approve the request of Norfolk County Agricultural High School to use Old Fisher Ball Field on June 1st, 2023.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. 5-0. And a couple of Adams Farm requests.
Motion to approve request of Joshua Leviser to use Adams Farm on September 2nd, 2023 from 1 to 4 p.m.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
5-0.
Motion to approve request of ECDC Nursery School to use Adams Farm on June 4th, 2023 from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
5-0. And then we have memorandum of agreements to ratify. Jim?
Sure, so I'd like to actually cover that in executive session and hop back up to vote.
Okay,
So
fair
provide you
enough,
with a
okay.
brief update.
Fair enough.
So I know Labor Council Kevin Feely's here, but if you'd like, I'd like to cover the unfinished business with the remaining town meeting articles, if you're okay with that.
Sure. Okay, let's do that.
So, first article up, the Finance Committee took up last night was the in-year budget adjustment. There's two items being addressed. One is $450,000 for the new ambulance. We briefly discussed with the chief, I believe, last time he came in. Capital Budget Committee actually met tonight. The FinCom voted last night favorable action for this, but we also wanted capital budget to weigh in. They voted favorable action on it too. The second item on here is the net metering. This year was the first year we had to budget for it as part of a revenue and an expenditure. It was an estimate. We were conservative on our estimates, however, we didn't know that electric prices would go the way they did this year, so we have to make up for it a little bit. We're not losing any money, we're actually making too much money off of this, so we have to pay, per our agreement, 72.5% of the money that we take in, we pay to the solar farm. We keep the remaining 27.5%. That's part of our net metering agreement that we signed in 2015. So this is just, we're going to make up for this when our free cash is certified. So it's a win-win for us. So I'd recommend favorable action on this one.
Questions for Jim? Ally?
Sorry, motion for favorable action for Article number 3.
Second.
All in favor, excuse me, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
5-0.
Sure. Next item up, I'll go to Article 31, this is the order the FinCom took it in last night. We placed this item on kind of at the last minute to cover all of our bases as far as easements are concerned with the new middle school property. The utilities are now coming for the new project, coming from East Street to the site. The old project came from Washington Street to the site. So this allows us to grant any easements for Eversource, any of the cable providers, covers all our bases in case we need it. It was suggested a while back by the project manager. Town council reviewed it and said it's a good idea. Right now, we have license agreements in place to do the work that's necessary, but this just covers us for any utilities that may come into the site.
Questions?
Finance Committee voted favorable action, 13-0 on it.
Questions for Jim? Ally?
Motion for favorable action on Article number 31.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
5-0.
Okay. I'll get back to Article 22 at the end, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
They did consider all the other articles that were considered by the planning board, and to be quite honest with you, I know Patrick and Jim are both here. They voted in the same manner in which the planning board voted on in each of these articles. I would note that there were a couple of close votes, specifically relating to the two-family and three-family dwellings in general residence. It was a 7-6 vote, which was a very close vote. The town meeting is going to require a 2/3 vote on these anyways, so I'm not sure the chances of those getting through with a split vote on FinCom, but town meeting will be able to decide that. So they did vote favorable action on that, and they voted to remand back Article 30, which was the excavation and filling of earth. And if you have any questions, I know Jim and Patrick are here, and we can address anything you may have with those articles.
On the two that were 7-6 votes, and I was at that meeting last night, I believe the primary objection or issue of debate was the special permit versus as a right.
Correct.
And this has come up on a number of articles where right now a special permit is required to do something. The planning board, in this case, sponsoring 2 articles to have the articles, become by right as opposed to special permit in many cases. Discussion centered on the special permit process and then, what comes from that in terms of a public hearing and notification to abutters and so forth. And so that's where I think the 7-6 vote came from. Do I have that right, Jim?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So, do we just want to know?
So if you'd like to go down, I could go down. Article 23 relates to the subdivision phasing zoning bylaws. They voted favorable action, 13-0-0 on that one.
So,
Planning board also voted favorable action on that one.
okay, any questions on, let's take that article. So, any questions on that one for Jim? Okay, Ally?
Motion for favorable action for Article number 23.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. 5-0.
The next article is Article 24, the appeal of timeframe, reducing it from 30 days to 20 days for the subdivision appeal. Finance Committee voted 13-0-0, and Planning Board also voted in favorable of that 3-1-1.
Questions for Jim?
I'm sorry, I apologize for that. They voted 5-0-0. 3-1-1's the next one.
Okay, okay. Ally?
Motion for favorable action for Article number 24.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
5-0.
Article 25 will adjust the room side setback and building height requirements within a highway business district. Planning Board voted 3-1-1, favorable action. FinCom voted 10-3-0, favorable action on this one.
Any questions on this one? Ally?
Motion for favorable action on Article number 25.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
5-0-0.
Next one, pretty much Planning Board voted favorable action 4-1-0. FinCom was unanimous 13-0-0. This changes the capacity on residential parking in people's driveways currently. It's 2 cars. We're supposed to enforce it anything over 2 cars. This expands it to 4 cars. Obviously, everyone has, a lot of people have multiple cars. Kids have cars nowadays. This more or less just brings it up with the times.
Makes sense. Questions for Jim on that one? Ally?
Motion for favorable action on Article number 26.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. 5-0-0.
Article 27 relates to what Jim just talked about relating to a 2-family in a general residence zone. Again, Finance Committee was divided on that one, 7-6-0, and FinCom voted Planning Board voted 4-1-0. Favorable action.
Questions for Jim on that one? Glenn?
Just a comment, I did Articles 27 and 28, I watched the Finance Committee meeting. I think, as we said, it was a 7-6 vote, so very close, and I think there was some valid concerns raised, in the GR right now, which covers downtown, not downtown, but, in the downtown area, so Stone Street and Mass Ave by the high school, some of those side streets, some of the side streets up crossing the Norfolk Aggie, also East Walpole, some streets over there. So if you have a certain amount of square footage, just to kind of recap for people, if you have, I think, 20,000 square feet, you can build, as it relates to Article 27, you could theoretically tear down your single-family home and build 2 homes in its place. And then when we get to 28, we'll talk about you can actually build 3 homes in place of 1 home. And so that's fine. That's allowed with a special permit. I have no problem with people doing that if they run through the process the way it's outlined now. So removing that special permit process, I think some of the concerns that were raised were really just that neighbors wouldn't have as much feedback, wouldn't be able to participate in the public process, and maybe make some good changes to that project. So you'll still be able to build 2 families as it relates to Article 27 and 3 as it relates to Article 28. You just have to go through the special permit. So if this does not pass, so I would not support this. So they would kind of keep it the way it is and allow again, these 2 families and 3 families to continue to be built with a special permit. So that's where I'm at on that.
Thanks, Glenn. Others?
Yeah, I would just, I guess, speak to the other side of the coin there, in terms of, you know, how much sway neighbors and others in a neighborhood can have over what somebody does with their own property. I think going to the special permit is more work and more time than necessary for something like this. This isn't novel to make it a by right. It's something that many towns do. It streamlines the process for residents and property owners to go through it. And, you know, let's face it, we need more housing in Walpole, particularly in the GR and areas where people can walk downtown and can, you know, support those businesses and do all that. So I think that if we can make it, if we can streamline that process for folks, I think it's important that we do. Excuse me. And there's still plenty of opportunity for folks to weigh in and to have their voices be heard, you know, without unduly lengthening the process and really putting that burden on the person who actually owns the property. So I would be in favor of this.
Thanks, Ben. Others? Ally?
I'm kind of in the middle on this one, kind of going between Ben and Glenn, but I am concerned about restricting too much for someone who owns their property. And going to special permitting, is it a lengthy process? I also have concerns, as we talked about the master plan and the continuation and zoning bylaws. We're talking about a lot of zoning bylaws in our upcoming meeting. And what are the ramifications of these? How could that impact certain neighborhoods like our GR resident? There is a need for housing. It's something that we need to fix. So to me right now, I'm a little bit more in favor of keeping it to special permit until we get through that process of where our rewriting of zoning and where our master plan and where we're going with these neighborhoods and what is the real vision.
Okay, thanks, Ally. Anybody else? What was the planning board vote?
Planning board vote was 4-1.
4-1, yeah. So this is an interesting one. I'm going to support it largely because I want to show support for the planning board as they're wrestling with zoning articles and trying to streamline process and make our zoning book better. So I will support it. I will acknowledge the discussion around the special permit and versus the as of right. And we're going to have, I'll be on the other side of the coin on this when we get to our Article 22. But I'm going to support this article to show support for the planning board and the need for us to improve our zoning regulations. So further comments before we take a vote? Ally?
Would you like me to motion for favorable action
Well,
for
I'll
Article
second
number
it.
27?
You can vote however you want, but I'll second it.
Okay, motion for-
Seconded.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second?
We do.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No?
No?
And abstain? So Ben, you were favorable,
I
right?
said aye,
So
yeah.
okay, so 3-2. 3-2 vote.
Okay. Article 28, same type of situation, however, it covers a 3-family dwelling. Again, FinCom voted 7-6-0, and Planning Board voted 4-1-0.
Okay. It's really, I think, the same discussion again. Any comments? Ally?
Motion for favorable action on Article number 28.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No?
No?
3-2.
Okay. Article 29, reduce parking in residential development in CBD. Planning Board, FinCom voted 12-1-0 on that one, and the Planning Board voted 2-1-2 on that one. So kind of divided on that one also. So any questions?
Why did 2 people abstain?
I can't speak to.
You don't know.
Yeah.
They didn't say in the meeting?
I don't believe, do either one of you recall? Did they say why they abstained? No?
Okay. I don't, it's unusual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Ally?
Motion for favorable action on Article number 29.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. I think that's
Aye.
5-0-0. Okay, 5-0-0.
I'm hiding behind my, I'm trying to speak up.
Article 30 is, everybody, Planning Board voted to refer back to committee, so did FinCom, and this is an excavation and filling of earth. The general thought here was could fine tune it a little bit and bring it back at a later date and tighten it up.
I think that makes sense. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I think our motion should be to refer back to committee.
Motion to refer Article number 30 back to committee.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
5-0.
And 22. So last night, a lot of discussion with FinCom focused on Article 22, and the general consensus was planning board FinCom members wanted a little bit more. They wanted clarification on the word rental, which we added in there. And there was some discussion about, just as you just previously discussed, about a two-family, whether or not it should go before the zoning board for a special permit. I think Jim may have had a conversation with the ZBA chair afterwards. He did get up and say he originally was in favor of this. However, when the zoning board was still involved in it, he was not in favor of withdrawing the zoning board from the process altogether and allowing it as of a right. So what you have before you is two items which Patrick and Jim worked hard today to prepare. Basically two options: leaves the zoning board in it, and then it takes them out, as the board originally requested some time ago. Town council's reviewed the proposed changes, both that was brought up during the planning board meeting last Thursday and that was brought up last night. So it's basically, you guys tell us what you're more
What were the
comfortable.
votes by those two boards? I didn't write them down. I think you said them.
The FinCom didn't vote on it. They wanted to
Didn't.
kick it back. So what I'm asking for tonight, I know the select board usually likes to wait till the FinCom, but the FinCom wants some direction from this board. What would you like them to sponsor as a substitute motion? So I think tonight with this vote is you tell me what you're comfortable with. Direct the town administrator to go forward with whatever option it is. Present it to the FinCom for their consideration, and we can bring it back in 2 weeks for you to vote on.
So
That
there
cover
were,
everything?
yeah, it did, yeah. So there are really two things that are at work here. One is some language cleanup, and so you've done that. You've done the cleanup that we talked about last night. And Patrick, I assume you've reviewed that as well? Okay, good. And there was discussion that was not special permit related with the FinCom about certain sections and what certain things mean. So I think we've brought better clarity to that with the words that are now in here. So that's important. The second piece is this question about the special permit versus as of right. I am in favor of making this by right, but I believe that this article will struggle to pass on the floor of town meeting if we go down that path. I did speak with John Lee afterwards, and John had made it very clear in the FinCom discussion last night that he is opposed to us making it by right, that the special permit process brings transparency and notification to the abutters and so forth, which in the ZBA's view is better than just going through the building inspector and having the first time someone becomes aware that something's happening in a home next to them is when the construction starts. So I personally think that, back to my earlier comments on the planning board and wanting to show support for streamlining process, I personally think it would be better to make this right, because it streamlines the process. Ally, you made some very good points on what the special permitting process is all about and all that. That said, I don't think this is going to pass if we leave the language in. And I am concerned that we might be missing an opportunity to improve the language that's here. And if we push too hard to leave it in so it becomes as a right, that we may not get anything. So my instincts are telling me that we should go with the recommendation that leaves the zoning board involved, as John Lee would ask, with the language changes that have been made, and those are in both of these. So really, my view would be that we should go with the substitute motion that says leave the zoning board in the mix with the special permit. Let me pause and get other people's views. Who wants to go first? Glenn?
I guess I'll go first again. I agree with you on this one. Contrary to what I argued about the Articles 27 and 28, I do think this should be by right. And I think that because I want to kind of stake my position where I think a special permit should be involved and where it shouldn't. And I think, I know we're not talking about Articles 28 right now, but going from a single-family home to 3 homes on a lot, which is surrounded by single-family homes, could be a big shock to people in a neighborhood. And so a special permit in that situation might be appropriate. I don't want to talk about Article 28, but this is less intrusive, I think, to a neighborhood. An in-law suite is sort of attached to the home, and it's maybe pushing it out and pushing it back within the rights, within the parameters that are allowed. So I do think it should be by right, but that was going to be my question. Will it be successful? Will it pass? And so what's the point? If and I don't know if you're right, but if you're saying that it'll struggle, then you might be right. And so I will do what you think is, or what the board thinks is best. But I agree with you that by right would be my preferred path on this one. So.
Yeah, and what John offered last night is they had something like 10 of these.
So we went back and looked.
Oh, you did? Okay, good.
Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, thanks.
Since 2007, they've had, they've averaged 6.6 cases per year for a total of 40. They've had 144 total cases. These in-law apartments make up about 27% of the cases that they've considered dating back to 2017, which I think is considerable. It's a quarter of the workload that they've done since 2017. The thought process here is, this board, the ZBA, has been overworked. They've done yeoman's work over the last 3 or 4 years with all these 40B projects and major projects we've had coming through town. The original thought process here, we could help them cut back on their workload a little bit, but I understand John Lee's been very clear that he still wants them involved in this process, and I think people respect John Lee, him as a town meeting member, but also the chair of the ZBA. So I think it's a calculated, a partial win on this one instead of a total shot down, and it can't come back for a few years to town meeting when it gets shot down like that.
Of the ones that did come before them, do you know what the approval rate was?
I believe it was only one that they kicked out, right?
They're all approved and one withdrew.
One withdrew.
One withdrew. So that's another aspect to this. While it's more cumbersome, and I don't like the fact that it's cumbersome, I'm in favor of streamlining, but they're willing to continue with this special permit. They say it's not going to overwork them, and they basically, after going through the process, have been approving them. So I don't see a lot of risk that way. Let me pause. Ben, go ahead.
Yeah. So, lightening the load on the ZBA, I think is important. You make good points, Jim Johnson, I think, about that. Certainly, that was one of the avenues. And not only lightening the load, but bringing more in focus the work on 40Bs so that we can sharpen our pencils on those and we can take more time and put more effort towards those is going to be important because, as we've seen, that's not going to slow down. I think it would appear that we're going to be having more of those coming down the road here shortly. So that reason is still valid. And the reason to give homeowners more control over their own properties is still valid. So all the reasons to make it by right are still valid. Nobody has actually come up with a reason why by right is bad or shouldn't be done, other than it might not pass. And the reason it might not pass is because people who is basically a fear factor, right? And I think we need to address the uglier side of this, which is I may be sitting here, and I'm not casting aspersions on anybody, believe me, I'm just saying. I don't have any plans to put an in-law in my house. But I want to make sure that my neighbor can't because I'm nervous about what they might do. So I'm going to vote against it, right? That's the fear at town meeting, and that's the conversation that ends up happening is, well, you're going to lose, people come in, they say, you're going to lose control over what your neighbors do, you're not going to know. And that drives the fear, and what people don't know is what's going to happen, and so that drives their decision making. That's not the case. So the facts of the matter, the facts of why this has been brought up, still stand. And I understand why, Jim O'Neill, you're bringing up that maybe we ought to take that part out of it. But to me, I'll vote in favor of this in town meeting in whatever form it takes because I think it's important. But I haven't heard anything. I've watched the planning board. I've watched FinCom. I've heard John Lee talk about it, and I respect all these people's opinions. But none of that changes the facts of why it was made to be by right in the first place. So I'm very much in favor of that. And I think it stands on its merits, so, thanks.
Okay. Any other comments?
I agree, too, that I am fearful that this would not pass if we do not address that. I do think it could be by right, and I think there was a lot of language that was cleaned up, and very specifically what is required of an in-law and what the purpose of an in-law was written very clearly in this, but I would support keeping the ZBA and the special permitting part in it, if necessary.
Anyone else?
So, one item, no, I want to be totally straightforward with you. The item in yellow says the zoning board of appeals shall grant a special permit. The old language, so zoning board of appeals may grant a special permit. I don't want this to come up as a roadblock, the word shall and may. You guys tell me what you'd like in there. Do you want the word shall or may? It may not make much of a difference.
Difference.
But
Well, there must be a difference. What's the difference?
Well, it's been a topic of conversation at town meeting before.
Yeah.
So this whole notion of, shall versus may.
we did have town council weigh in on it. I only briefly read it before we came in here. But basically, he said, even if you change the word shall to may, it doesn't give it much teeth, right, guys?
You can't be mandatorily, So even if you change the word from may to shall, a special permit, it can't be automatic. It still is a decision of the board. So the word really makes, I guess, no difference in the fact that if the zoning board wanted to deny, that word doesn't hold them accountable.
So my question would be, why change it?
I'm posing the question to you, do you want to change it?
I-
The answer's no? We'll leave it as.
I personally,
may
I think all we're doing is setting ourselves up for unnecessary conversation in town meeting, and, it'll go round and round for a half hour, a shall versus may.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So let's just not change it. If it doesn't change anything, why change it? Everybody good with that?
Yep.
Okay.
So we're going back to May, is that what we're saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
leave it as may.
Another non-binding word, so.
I'm just trying to avoid unnecessary
Oh,
dialogue.
yeah, I hear you.
We can try.
So can the board go on record, because they did ask you, has the board voted on this, as direct me to move forward with this as a substitute motion for the finance committee to consider?
So I heard differing points of view on the board. I guess what we should do is just put a motion forth and see how the vote goes, and see which way the board comes down. Just with the-
Yeah, I thought we were going to vote on it, so I am in favor of, the half a loaf.
Yeah.
So I will vote that way, so.
So, and again, I want to be clear that I think that one of the things that we are trying very hard to do is to make the zoning, the zoning bylaws more clear, that we're making the process easier, more streamlined, taking the burden off the applicant, all of those things that we get criticized for. And we think there is, or at least I think there is, a lot of room for improvement within the zoning bylaw. And so, and this one is actually a fairly straightforward one too, which is, there's a lot of these that are really far more complex, and yet we're struggling with the simple one, is really interesting. I'm prepared to take the half a loaf, and, because I really am fearful that, and Ben, I realize that it's not a great answer. I'm afraid that it's gonna fail.
Sure.
But if it were to fail, then we get nothing, and there's some other goodness in here that we get. So I'm gonna recommend that we first take a motion to, I guess, go with the substitute motion is there a way to refer to these, Jim?
I was gonna number them, but I didn't want anybody to say, so we could say the yellow highlighted version or the non-highlighted version on the first page.
The one that leaves the special permit process intact with the change of shall to may.
Correct.
Okay?
Okay.
So let me just take a shot at it. Move to approve the substitute motion language to be forwarded to the Finance Committee that leaves the special permit process intact and changes shall to may.
Seconded?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
And abstains, nobody. So 4-1. And Ben, I respect that vote.
Yeah.
Very much. Thank you.
My vote.
4-1, Jim,
Okay.
thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Hey, I have to say, these two gentlemen out here did some great work on this one.
Yeah, guys,
They
thanks.
worked
I
hard
appreciate
last
it.
week,
Yeah,
and
yes,
today,
definitely do.
they crunched it with town council, so thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Noticed
you guys did
by
a great
everybody.
job, and Patrick in particular, I know you took a little bit of heat at the planning board meeting, and I appreciated your reaction to that. You were a real professional, so well done. Thank you. And Jim, thank you too. Okay. All right, so that gets us through, that's all the warrant articles, right?
Yeah, so with that, I know Kevin's time strapped here
Oh,
at 9
okay.
PM. I'd recommend we go into executive session. You have to come out anyways to
Yeah,
ratify these.
fair
if
enough.
you're in
We'll
favor,
finish up.
and then
Okay.
we'll cover them afterwards.
Okay, so, I hereby declare it is the board's intention to go into executive session for purpose number 3, which is to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. A discussion of the foregoing in open session could compromise the purpose of the executive session, with the select board returning to open session at the conclusion of executive session. So, Ally, if you'd give us a motion.
Motion, the select board will enter into executive session for the purpose stated by the chair, with the board return to open session at the conclusion of the executive session.
And this needs to be a roll call vote, so Ally?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Jim? Yes. So we are now in executive session. We will come back out of executive session into public session at the conclusion of the executive session. So Patrick, just take us off the air for the Thank you. So we've finished up the executive session. We're back in open session, and the first order of business will be to ratify several memorandum of agreements. So, Jim, anything we should say before we
No, just
take the vote?
I recommend the board vote to ratify the MOAs with the Public Safety Dispatchers, Clerical Union, Local Police 155, the Firefighters Association, and the library employees.
Okay, Ally?
Motion to sign the memorandum of agreements with the Walpole Public Safety Dispatchers, Town Hall Clerical Employees, Local Police 155, Firefighters Association, and library employees for the term July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2026.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
500. Okay, we've taken care of the town meeting articles, so we're on to, I think, the consent agenda. Ally?
Yep. Motion to accept with gratitude the following donations from the COA pool players to COA pool table expenses, various donors to Smiling Eyes Financial Assistant, Gloria Deneen to COA Gifts, Friends of St. Patrick to Friends of COA account, J.D. Murphy Management Company Incorporated to DPW Signal at Main and East account.
Seconded with thanks.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And I'm going to abstain because I'm on the Friends of St. Patrick board, so 401. Okay, to the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes of March 14th, 2023 as presented in our packet.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
500. And Jim, I think we're on to the
Sure.
town administrator's report.
Just a few items here. Finance Committee, I expect the Finance Committee to wrap up their meetings next week and take votes on Articles 4, 11, 12, 13, 15, 16, and 22. The middle contracts there are all the employment agreements there. So they're well ahead of schedule, and then their public hearing will just be right before town meeting. The Route 1A Fields Complex, the official ceremony is set to be held on Saturday, June 3rd. The generous donor, the LaRusso family, will be there, and we're moving forward with plans on that one. Patrick's done a great job lining everyone up with the plaques and making sure the signs are all good to go. I think Brendan's going to open up the Snack Shack this weekend, right? Yeah, Saturday for the first time. Bathrooms are going to be operational. We've decided to go with hours of operation from 8 a.m. to 9:30. Donnie has the automatic door locks functioning, and we're going to see how that schedule goes. I believe most of the groups wrap up around 9:30 up there, so if we need to expand it, we will, but I'll keep you updated on that one. Parks Department, unfortunately, Justin Monta gave his notice. He's going to the private sector. Justin did a great job his 3 years here in Walpole. Wish him the best of luck, but I'm pleased to announce that Jim Thomas, a longtime foreman in the Parks Department, is going to be taking over as the park superintendent. I'm really happy about that. I'm sure he's going to do some great work there. Last item, MWRA update. You might recall that back in October, the Sewer and Water Commissioners advanced a capital request to explore supplemental water sources, one being the MWRA, and then also to see if there's any other well sources in town. With the events back in February in East Palestine, Ohio, that kind of triggered me to look into this a little bit further and to say, I questioned Rick and Scott, where do all our wells sit? And most of them sit very close to railroad tracks. And obviously, there's a lot of transportation going in and out of there. So we've met with our consultant, Weston and Sampson, multiple times. We've had 2 or 3 meetings with Norwood. This isn't something that can happen overnight. We can't advance it and make it happen at the fall town meeting. But I'm trying to push this along. Rick and Scott are both helping me on this one. I know the commissioners are really supportive of this, but to try to get that in there, because I want some backup if in case anything ever happens to us. We do have an emergency connection out on Route 1, but it's only an emergency if anything were to ever come up. It's not like authorized or anything, so we're pushing forward with that. The commissioners have been really supportive, and I just wanted to let you know that we're in talks with Norwood. We haven't agreed to a price yet. They haven't really thrown out a specific number. They've thrown out ballpark numbers to us, but I'm confident we can come to some type of an agreement. And I really want to try to get in there while this window's still open. It's a few-year window, but it's a few-year process too. So just an update to the board. That's it.
Thanks. Any questions or comments?
I mean, I probably have more questions for the MWRA than for Jim, so I'll hold my questions for now.
Sure.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
500. We're now adjourned. Thank you, Patrick, from Walpole Media, and good night, everyone.